It is up. Another season of study, another year of sharing this journey, and I'm really excited, privileged, honored, and looking forward, not too far ahead, to all the wonderful things that will come from the Lord through His Word. For this first share, I had an idea at first, but as I continued to treat myself with today's dose of the truth, of the way, of the life, of the light, the idea of God's image versus His likeness is what really took a hold of me. Chapter 1, verse 26 is where God tells us how He formed man in His image. And just for the purpose of this thought, I realize that all of us, every human being created, we resemble the image of the heavenly. When I say heavenly beings, it's said that here, some people try to use the point when God says, "Let us make man," that He's talking about His other separate but equal parts. You don't get that way of thinking on this end. For me, when God says "let us," my understanding at this time is that the angels were formed already. He had His angels there with Him, and angels are in the form of man. When they walked around here, they on the earth, they were men, or they were in the image of men. They weren't these huge creatures with these huge wings. I don't know how heaven works, but at least in these moments, they were in the image of man. So when God is here saying, "Let us make man in our image," He's basically referring to this form of two arms and legs. Now, of course, it also talks about in heaven there are beasts and, 4 heads. And so I guess in a way, I'm glad He didn't make us in that image, But in any case, that's the idea I got when it says we are all in His image. We don't have to try to be in His image. We're born to resemble Him or looking like Him. However, continuing down, I put here, it actually talks about when and I'm not going to cut this because I want it to be in real time. I have here in chapter 2, verse 8, formed in His image, the image of His form, a form of godliness. I also believe this heavenly image of God is the ability to design and think and reason and will, making us different from all of God's other creations. So I believe that's where that comes from. 8 is where it talks about, again, the man he formed. So when he made us in his image, he formed us in a way where we can do these things. Just yesterday I was looking at a nature special, as I like to do. I'm just in awe of the wonder of God, his genius, his magnificence, his glory, where he could make these, everything connected, and it was these actual birds, and they were mating. And usually in nature, the male is the multicolored, the flamboyant, because it's our our task to attract the female. So these particular birds, the female was just a regular like brown color, but the coloration of these males, they were like a red color, and the way the feathers were on their head, it almost looked like a yellow and black like hat. It was just, I sat there and I watched them do the dance, and the mating dance, but really I was just looking at the colorations and things and was like, wow, Lord, like, to come up with this, to just, it's amazing. And I believe that's part of this formation of his image, where we can sit down and take a blank canvas and create something. It doesn't have to be that. We can come up with words. We can, make these machines that do all these computings. We live in this digital age. And to me, that's a testimony of the formation of man, which God bestowed upon us, that is something innate from birth. However, being in his likeness, it's something totally different. After, and the fall, so to say. Well, first of all, I had something that kind of puzzled me here, because God says, the enemy, he doesn't speak the truth. All he does is speak lies. Excuse me. All he does is speak lies. I agree 100%. Chapter 3, verse 5 is when the serpent comes and he begins tempting Eve and says, hey, God knows that if you eat of the tree, and it says it, you will be like him. And I said, okay. Going down though to verse 22, God says the same thing. Basically, now, the man is eaten. We have to get him out of here, because now he's like one of us. The key there, and in both of them, both the devil and God, how is this likeness? We are already in his image. We're already in his form. The likeness that I got from this is they were able now to know good from evil. They were able to distinguish good from evil. That's how they're like the heavenly beings. Before that, in this innocence, they were just in the image. They became like him, like the supernatural, like the heavenlies, like those on the higher plane or on a different plane, because now they know the difference. Going back to my question about how was the devil, speaking the truth? If I had to answer that right now, I would say that it was the motive or the intention. The intention was evil and deceitful and a lie. It was ultimately, he was to trick him. It's like I always use this analogy or something, but I guess this is the closest thing. I grew up, in the 80s, and that was the kidnap time. And I guess myself almost getting kidnapped, it hits home. But even though there's a lure, a predator, somebody that's even in nature, some animal that's trying to eat another animal, it has to lure you in. And so, somebody giving you, just because somebody gives you something, and I have this discussion or conflict or whatever you want to call this, enmity, to use verse 15 of chapter 3 with someone very dear to me, about just because someone gives you something doesn't mean it's a gift, so to say, And so my take on it would be that the speaking that the serpent did to Eve was deceptive. It was made to lure, to trap, to entice one, and so forth. But in any case, taking this to now a personal level, I believe that I was born, and this is my belief, that my worldview, that we're all born in the image of God, in his form, in his likeness. However, it is only when we receive the transformative, life-changing power of his great and glorious salvation that now we become like him, or we have the ability now to start becoming like him. Formed just because we're in his image, just because we look a certain way, doesn't mean we're like him. Like you could have twins. They may look the same way, they may have the same image, but they're not alike. So again, my thought is, we're born in the image of the heavenly, formed in such a way where we can be creative, and we have a look. But it's only when we begin this Christian walk, following the pattern of God, who revealed himself in Jesus Christ, that now we start to become like him. Being formed in the image, we don't have to do anything. It's just who we are. It's how it be. But in order to gain likeness, Christ-likeness, it's a becoming. And so only then truly do we know God, to know Jesus, to know his love. Are we now able to know the difference between good and evil? And I kind of want to be careful with my words, because for a long time I've realized, and from my personal opinion, the plight of the saints is that we don't really know him, and therefore being able to distinguish between good and evil, between the right and the wrong motives. I struggle with that myself, when things are being said and things are happening, the motive, and maybe that in itself is wrong, because I think I'm being corrected out loud in real time, that all I need to know is that God is above all, through all, in all. He provides and he makes a way through all things. So I guess being more concise, I guess maybe I'm becoming right now that the likeness of him is always to give him glory. Because that's what he was like when he was on this earth. He was always about his Father's business, always giving him glory, always talking about the kingdom of heaven, always seeking to shine the light, to help others to become like his essence, his very being, bringing us into his nature. And for me, that's an honor and a privilege. And so that was the first thought is, and the hope is that all of this is to continue becoming like him. If I can leave an encouraging word, it would be to really, well, I'm asking the God of glory to help us to have a love and a desire, because what I saw that the devil did to Eve, the way she enticed her was to let her see it. You know, you talk about, or it's spoken of the lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, the pride of life. Well, using that same formation, using the way we're formed to be a benefit to the Lord, my prayer and my desire is that God will entice us, that we will be able to see his beauty. You know, that is my hope, that his beauty will shine forth through his people, that it will become such an enticement, such a thing of beauty, that people will be drawn unto the river of living water, you know, the fruit of the Spirit, and will begin to eat and partake of the fruit of the Spirit of God. And in doing so, we will become more like him until the day that we get to see him and be as he is. Hallelujah. All glory and honor to our great God. Caption this.